and join us tonight on another Alabama adventure, getting close to Bigfoot. Yeah, we're going to be talking about Bigfoot once again tonight, and it has really been a cold February here in Alabama. It wasn't that bad up until February, but February is always a bad month here in Alabama. And as you can see in this picture here, a couple of creatures, or whatever you want to call it, that wandered into the yard this afternoon. It was so cold. But what I want to tell you about is where I first got it, I guess you would call it, introduced to Bigfoot when I was about 15 years old. I was still in high school, and me, along with some of my friends there, we began hunting Bigfoot. We didn't know exactly what we were hunting. We thought it was a giant monkey, was what we called him back then. There were a few people, and I was one of them, lucky enough, that had actually seen the Patterson-Gimlin film on some specials that came on, like Mr. Spock, Leonard Nimoy, on In Search Of. I had watched that episode where the Patterson-Gimlin film had been shot and what all they talked about there. But we had no idea that what was roaming around in the woods here was a Bigfoot. Like I said, we just thought it was a giant monkey of some type. But now we know what it was because of all the evidence and everything. And we didn't really make any photographs or try to take hair samples or measure tracks or anything like that. Because at 15 years old, I really didn't know what I was doing. One thing I will say, I did have a little bit of background, I guess you could call it, in mysteries and that type of stuff. When I was in the sixth grade, our sixth grade teacher introduced us to the Hardy Boy series, and that was a very good thing back then. I managed to get the complete series. My father, as a matter of fact, believed in reading and that type of stuff, and I carried a couple of these books home, and I was reading them, and he saw that I was interested in them, and one day we went to a store where they sold Hardy Boy books. He purchased the entire set for me that day, and as a matter of fact, I still have the biggest part of them. I loaned some of them out, and they got lost over the years, but when eBay and computers came along, I managed to replace the set of the books that I had lost over the years. But that kind of gave me a little background on investigation and that type of stuff. That was the only type of training, and that really wasn't training, but that's the only thing that I had to kind of give me an idea of what to do when I was talking to people about this giant monkey. I just wish we'd have done a whole lot better job of making pictures and taking down evidence back then, but what can you expect out of somebody 15 years old and really didn't know what he was doing at that particular time. But anyway, what I want to tell you about is a place called Pleasant Grove. It's a little community right next to Wadley, and there's a church, a cemetery, and an old school there. And in the old school was where I finally found that where Bigfoot was living, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. But I found a nest or a lair or whatever you want to call it in there one afternoon. At this particular place, now we had police sightings also up there, and now this was around 1971. And as I said, two of the police sightings I'm going to tell you about in just a few minutes. Now here in Wadley in 1971, they had a 71 Galaxy was the only police car they had. They had two policemen, and they shared the car, or they used their personal car at the time. And sometimes they would let some of us young guys ride around with them, I guess sort of giving us a little idea of what police work might be like when we got out of high school. We were like in the 11th and 12th grade, and this is a picture of a 71 a Galaxy that was just like the police car that was here in Wadley, and I have rode in that car, not in the back seat being carried to jail, but in the front seat, sometimes riding around with the policemen at night. They were very friendly back then. They were just like, they were just regular people of the community, and sometimes they needed a little help riding around with them to watch things. And I wasn't with them on one particular night when they made a Bigfoot sighting, but somebody else that I know was in the car, and I'll tell you about that in just a few minutes. But this particular car, I want to tell you about that. Back then, motor size was measured by cubic inches rather than liters like they are now. And this car had a 429 Police Interceptor motor in it, which would carry you for a ride. And keep that in mind in just a few minutes whenever I start telling you about one of the sightings up there at the church early one morning. I'll also show you this picture of a race car back around 1971, showing you that on the hood of this car they wrote the size of the motor on the hood when they would have a race. This is the 21 Purelator that was driven by David Pearson. Was a very winning race car back then. David Pearson was a very winning driver, and this car carried him to a lot of victories. And if you'll notice on the hood, it had 429. And what I'm pretty sure, this particular car has a racing engine in it, and I'm pretty sure that that's what a Police Interceptor was, just a hot rod car that would run faster than anybody else's on the road, pretty much. So if you would just keep that in mind whenever I'm telling you the story about the traffic sighting up there one morning. Whenever the police used to go up to Pleasant Grove and sit in the churchyard to kind of watch traffic. We had traffic coming into two manufacturing plants here. We had traffic coming into the school and also to the local college. So there was a lot of traffic coming down this road every morning, and the police would sit in the churchyard up there to kind of keep the traffic under control, nobody speeding and driving reckless and that type of stuff. But he had a Bigfoot sighting up there one morning, and I'll tell you about that in just a few minutes. Okay, now the first sighting at Pleasant Grove that I want to tell you about happened one night up there with the police. And there was a young guy in the car with him that night that was just riding around with him so he would have somebody with him in case something happened. If you will notice this map, this is a map that I drew many years ago for a booklet that I did on Bigfoot sightings of East Central Alabama. And you can purchase that book on the website, or you can just click in Bigfoot sightings of East Central Alabama on eBay and it should pull it up. But anyway, this is a illustration that I did for that book. If you will notice, on the left side of the map would be toward Wadley, and if you're coming up that large road there is Highway 77, and if you're looking at the left of the map and you go to the right up that main road up to the church, that's number 2 on there. If you can see that number 2, you would make a right turn onto the road that went by the church and past the cemetery toward the school. And then after you pass the church, you would make a left turn. All of this was dirt road in those days. I don't think you can even get up in there now. I think the woods have grown up so bad up there that you can't even get in there. But you would make that loop around that rear there in the loop. It's number 4, if you can see that on the map. But that's the way the police would come in there at night. He had a clock up there that he had to punch so that the council or whoever would know that he actually made his rounds up there every night, keeping a check on this school. And he had a punch clock up there, and he would go around that dirt road of that rectangular building and then make a right turn there in front of it to where you see the number 3. That's where the punch clock was, and that's where a large door was that you could actually pull a car into that building. This old school was turned into the Ag and the Home Ec building up there whenever we were in Wadley High School. But anyway, what happened was he had about 3 or 4 rounds he had to make there that night at a certain time, so, as I said, so he could punch the clock. And on one of his rounds, he came up through there and he was making the loop around the building, around the school. And he and the other guy said that they thought they saw something on top of this school. And what they thought it was first was maybe buzzards or turkeys had roosted up there for the night, because they both said that when they first saw it, the lights really wasn't shining on the top of the school. It was just the headlights, the outside part of the headlight that shines. You could just see something moving around up there, and it looked like something's wing. They said because it looked like feathers were hanging down under it, or apparently it was hair hanging down from under this Bigfoot's arm. But as they came on around past the school, this thing, whatever it was, ran down the top of the building toward where the punch clock was. So the guy that was riding with him, they had spotlights on either side of the car. So the guy that was riding with him flipped his spotlight on to where he could shine the roof of the building to see if it was somebody or if it was a bird up there or what it was. They didn't know if somebody might be trying to break in the building because there was tools and equipment from the ag department, and then there was like sewing machines and other things like that over in the home ec department. So somebody could be up there trying to rob it, and that's why they had to punch the clock so many times a night to keep an eye on the place. But anyway, as they were nearing the end of the building, they could tell that it was this giant monkey. Or that's what they thought it was, but it was actually a Bigfoot all the time. And in this picture here, you will see an illustration that I did whenever they were telling me about it, that as they came around and shined a light on this thing, that they were afraid of what it was, or was it going to jump on the car. But when the light hit it, it was undoubtedly just as afraid of them as they were of it, because it ran down to the opposite end of the building where this large garage door was, and it just jumped off the building. And when it hit out there in about middle of the little road that circled the school, it took off running down through the woods. And that was the last time they saw it. And of course, they came on back into town that night and were telling some other people about what they'd seen. And of course, people were laughing about it and made fun of them. But it was only till the next morning that I was getting well known, that I was very interested in whatever this thing was, this monkey or whatever it was, till they came by my house. And on the map, if you will look back, there's a street. It's called Robert Street, where you see I have several houses drawn in there on the left side of that road. And that second house down is where I lived. And that's where we heard a lot of Bigfoot activity. We didn't know it at the time, but we heard him imitating a hoot owl and that type of stuff. And that's in the other video that I was telling about, whenever he would go like the owl, making that particular owl hooting sound at night, that my dogs in the yard would just go wild and just go barking and run out in the little field across from that road like they were after him. But I don't think they wanted to catch him any more than anybody else did. They were just acting big, or acting like they were chasing him off. But I think this thing chased them off. Okay, now we're on location up here at Pleasant Grove Baptist Church, and you can see my Cherokee right there parked in the parking lot, and right there is the church. And I wanted to give you an idea of where the police used to sit up here in the morning whenever he was watching traffic coming down 77, coming into town, and right back down this way would be on into town. But the police would usually sit about right along here in the parking lot every morning to kind of keep an eye on traffic. And what happened one morning, it was a cold winter morning back in 1971, and he was sitting here clocking traffic or watching traffic, whatever you want to call it. And he was sitting in the police car, and occasionally he would glance into the rearview mirror just like anybody does whenever they're going down the road or sitting somewhere. You'll glance in the rearview mirror once in a while. And he glanced into his side mirror there one time, and he saw something walking down beside the church right here. And he looked back, and he could tell that it was this giant monkey that we had been seeing around Wadley, and we'd had several reports on. The monkey came, or it was a Bigfoot, is exactly what it was. The Bigfoot came walking down this little roadway, and we'll go up here and I'll show you the little roadway that I was talking about earlier. I think it's already so grown up that you can't even get up in there now. Okay, now we'll go right on up here, and you can see the side of the church. I'm going to show you where he told me the Bigfoot was whenever he saw it the first time. And it just came strolling down the side of this church just like it was supposed to live here. He said it was right along about this third window right here was where, when he first saw it. And he said the thing was coming toward him. His car was angled at a little different angle than what my Jeep is right now, to where he could look up through here with the rear view mirror. But he said what you would call now, this thing was power walking toward him and the car and the other guy that was in there with him that morning. So anyway, we're gonna walk right on up here now to where this is, like on the map, this was the little dirt road that circled on up around Pleasant Grove School. And I believe that the woods have grown up so bad that you can't even get up through there now, but we'll walk right on out here and show you the best I can where the school was. Yeah, it's grown up so bad that you can't get up through there now. And there could be some Bigfoot signs up through here. But anyway, what you did, you went right on out through here, you made a left, and then you circled around behind the old school building up there. Was where the earlier video was about the Bigfoot that jumped off at the top of the school that morning. But I'm gonna go back now and tell you what happened here. The Bigfoot had undoubtedly came out of the school, and I'll tell you why I believe that in just a little bit on the next segment. But anyway, we'll walk right back down here, and right about here on this third window of the church was where he estimated that the Bigfoot was when he first saw it. And he said the thing was walking right at him, and it seemed to be looking right at the police car, and it wasn't losing any time. He didn't believe, he didn't think it was actually after him or after the car or anything. But what I believed is this was a trail that the Bigfoot used, because if you look right across the road there, you see that little hill. We found what we thought was a trail that Bigfoot was using several years ago when he was in here, and about 200 or 300 yards into those woods over there is a pretty good sized little fish pond. So he could have been getting water or fish out of that, and this could have very well been a trail because the area got to be used so well by Bigfoot. But as this thing approached, the policeman reached down and cranked the car up, and he kept watching it there for just a few seconds. But he really didn't lose any time watching the Bigfoot. He cranked the car up, and as I said earlier, the car would take you for a ride because of the engine that was in it. But anyway, he left out of here, and as you can see here, somebody turned around and left a few little marks earlier today. But when I came up that afternoon after I found out about what happened, there was 2 marks across through here where tires left out spinning. And he came on out through here across this little rise, still spinning, getting away from this thing. And as he came on into the highway, now if you'll watch that car, you can see, I'm gonna say about 300 yards down the road, there's a little curve down there. And well, that car didn't go all the way. But if you will notice on down there, about 300 yards down the road is a curve that goes to the left. Anyway, the guy in the car with him, he wasn't a policeman. He was just, like I said earlier, somebody that rode with the police from time to time. I just wanted to let you see the highway down through here. But right here, where he came into the pavement, were 2 solid, heavy black tire marks to where he spun the tires as he was giving this car everything it had as he came out in the road, because the Bigfoot had got a little bit closer than what he wanted. Down there is a curve that turns to the left. I'm gonna say it's a good 250 or 300 yards down the road. And the guy riding with him told me later that day, well, right there where that car, you saw it come around the curve, told me later the day that they told me this story, that when they went into that curve, that he looked at the speedometer on the car and thought they were both going to have a wreck and possibly be killed that day. He said when they went into that curve that the car was already over 100 miles an hour, and he was begging the policeman to slow down, and that they needed to not be driving so fast, that he needed to slow down or either let him get out and he could go on. But that was what happened one morning as they were clocking traffic coming down this road. Okay, now I'm going to tell you another sighting that happened right here at this same place. If you'll notice right here across the road, I'm not sure if anything's using the woods right now, but there's a a large tree right in there that you can see just right this side on that bank. One morning, somebody was, let me go right over here and I can explain it a little bit better as I can refer back to the map we had. You'll notice right down there, just a little ways right down there is Robert Street. It turns back to the left. But anyway, there was a young man that was going to high school that morning, and he was driving to a school, and he came up Robert Street, and when he stopped there where the stop sign is, of course he looked both ways to see if anything was coming, and he looked down that way and it looked clear, and he looked up this way and he saw the giant monkey coming off of this bank. It was kind of sliding and it was kind of running. The reason he was sliding and walking and running at the same time is we'd had about a 3 or 4 inch snow that night, and when he looked up this way, the monkey was coming. I keep saying the giant monkey, but that's what we used to call it. But the Bigfoot was coming down this little bank right here, and the guy kept sitting there at the stop sign, and he saw this thing slide down into the ditch right across the road there. Then it stood up on its 2 hind legs, and it kind of trotted across Highway 77 here. And he knew that it came on up into the church parking lot. Of course, right then, I don't believe the police was up here that morning because of the weather was so bad, snow and everything. I guess he figured the traffic would be slow enough. But anyway, let me get turned back around again. I keep walking off. But anyway, whenever this young man that was in about the 12th grade at Wadley High School in 1971, anyway, he sat there till he saw this thing walk across the road. And of course, he had heard about the giant monkey and the Bigfoot. So he came on to school. I don't believe he came up here. I believe he came on to school, and in the parking lot we used to, all of us, all the boys, and then some of the girls that like to sit around and talk every morning before we had to go to class. We all sat in the parking lot up there a while and would shoot the bull. And that's what we were doing this particular morning. Even though we'd had about a 3 or 4 inch snow the night before, school wasn't closed, we all got to come on to school. Anyway, I'll turn back around here and sort of let you be looking at the bank while I'm telling this story. But anyway, we all were sitting there, and this guy came in real fast, kind of sliding around, and he pulled up to where the biggest crowd of us was, and that's what he was telling. He said, "I saw the giant monkey this morning. I saw the giant monkey." And of course, everybody got to talking to him about it, wanted to know where and what was going on and to tell a story about it, and which he did. So whenever he told us where it was and what he had seen, me and a friend of mine that did a lot of deer hunting, and also the guy that I told you about that we found the hollow cavern or rock up on Ball Rock a while back, he and I were good friends. Well, we are today, but we were real good friends back then, and we always done a lot of things together, like hunting and whatever. So anyway, he and I jumped in his truck. He had a pickup down there at the school parking lot. So me and him jumped in his pickup, and we came up here. Now to Wadley School, it's only about half a mile from here. As I was showing earlier, down there in that curve, Wadley School, one of the roads that go to it is just right in that curve down there. And then you go on a little bit further, and you go to the main parking lot for the student parking lot. Anyway, a lot's changed down there now. They have built other buildings and stuff like that. It doesn't look exactly like it did back then. But as I was saying, me and my friend, we came up the road and we pulled off into the driveway right here, and we walked right about here. It was right about here that we found the footprints of this thing, which were the biggest footprints that we had ever seen. We couldn't believe how big these things were. Now, we didn't measure them or anything like that, because like I said, we wasn't experienced investigators. All of my knowledge or experience was coming from the Hardy Boy books. So what we did, we could see there was like 2 lines that came off of this bank here where his feet slid down. Then you could tell he sort of moved around a little bit in the ditch right there across the road. And then where other traffic had already come down this road, some of the tracks were messed up, but you could actually tell where he had walked across this road and walked up this bank and walked into the yard, walked into the parking lot here at the church. I'll give you another shot of it, and of course my Cherokee's in the way right now where the tracks went. But actually at that time, the tracks would have come. You can see those two trees. There's kind of a wide spot there between them. That's about where the tracks came out of the woods. And as I said earlier, about 200 yards into those woods over is a pretty large little fish pond. So I believe that this was a well-used trail that Bigfoot used back in 1971. The tracks came across right here. They would have gone pretty much under where my Cherokee's sitting right now. And they were extremely large footprints. They were about, from the best I remember, they were about twice as long as me and my friend's foot, because I remember he put his foot down at his heel next to the heel of one of them, and he said, now put your shoe in front of mine. And so I just, he put his foot down, and I'm just going to do it with my foot. But I put mine like in front of his, and that track was almost as long as both of our feet, end to end. The tracks went right up beside the church there, to where the policeman a few weeks earlier had his sighting, and they went right on up that roadway toward the old school. Now at this time, the school from the previous year had been closed, and they had moved the ag and the home ec department back down to the main Wadley campus. And the old school up here was pretty much empty. Sometimes somebody would come up here for something if they just had to or whatever. They still kept a check on it at night and everything, but there wasn't any equipment. And over the year that it had been closed down, a lot of windows had got busted out of it. The doors had been vandalized, and they wouldn't lock and that type of stuff. But anyway, what the main thing I want to tell you about this sighting was we actually saw the actual footprints that this creature made in the snow, and they were almost the same length as 2 of our feet. After we saw this and everything, he and I talked about it. What could this thing be? It didn't have feet like a monkey. It had feet like a human. It had toes and heel and everything, just like a human foot. But anyway, we went on back to school, and we told everybody what we'd seen, and it was something to talk about all day, and we had a lot of fun with that day. Later that afternoon, now as I showed you on the map, right over this hill, just right down there where Robert Street was, and that would pretty much be the direction of the house that I lived in back in 1971, 72, back in there. But anyway, whenever I got out of school that afternoon, I came home and changed into my hunting clothes and got my gun like I was deer hunting, because I used to deer hunt these woods a lot back in here, and across the road too. I did a lot of deer hunting, squirrel hunting, all that type of stuff back when I was younger. But anyway, I got my gun, and I walked across a little field. The field down there now is grown up with pine trees. But I walked up here, and some of the snow had melted over the day. It had sort of warmed up a little bit. But in places where the sun hadn't shined, like on up in there around some of those trees around the road, you could still see the footprints. And that's what I did. I followed the footprints up through there a pretty good ways. It went up the little dirt road there a little ways, and then it angled out into the woods over there, which, like I said, I believe that was a Bigfoot trail back then. And there could have been more than one of these Bigfoot in here at the time, and I'm pretty sure there were, since people around had so many sightings. Okay, now we have decided to come on back to the studio to finish this video. You could probably tell from my voice and the way I was talking and moving around up there. It was extremely cold up there, and the wind was blowing this afternoon, so because of that, we wanted to get back in the studio where it's a little warmer, and I'll finish this up. But anyway, I was up in those woods hunting one afternoon, and I just thought I would circle back across the old playground and back around the school just to see what I could see up there, how everything looked after it had been closed for a while. And as I walked across the playground, I ran across these large tracks again. Whether it was the same tracks that we had actually seen that day of the snow, I'm not sure if it was the same Bigfoot if it wasn't. But anyway, there were some large tracks there, and I followed them the best I could, and they went toward the old school building. So like I said, the doors were open, and I just walked on in, and was sort of cautious about going in there because I didn't know who that I might run up on in there. But anyway, I walked on down the hall a little ways, and I noticed then that there was a bad smell, a very strong, bad smell in there, like something dead or like a skunk or both. But it was a very, very bad smell. I can remember walking in there. It would just about make your stomach turn. And I kind of got a little sick myself going in there. But I kept easing on down through there just to see what I might find in the old school after it had been closed for a while. And it was about the second or third classroom that I walked by, and that's where this odor was really coming from. So I had my gun with me, of course, because I was hunting that afternoon. So I eased around the door, looking very carefully as I went into the room. But there wasn't anything in there. But what I did notice was over in one corner, like this illustration I did, there was like a bed or a nest in there. It was very large. It was well large enough for a human to get in. And that's what I wondered at the time, if it was somebody had some homeless person or some maybe criminal or something that was staying in there. But it was cold weather then whenever I was up there, so I'm sure that it wasn't a human. But anyway, what I noticed was a lot of pine straw and looked like hay and some grass and that type of stuff was piled over in the corner, and you could tell something had been laying on this bed or nest, whatever you want to call it. Out in the floor of the classroom was other pine straw, but not as thick as the nest. That there was a little pine straw down, but there was a lot of bones, and some of them were pretty large bones, like maybe cow or horse. I could tell that some of them were like deer ribs and a deer backbone. I can remember that because I had cleaned a lot of deer back in those days, so I knew about what deer bones and stuff looked like. There was also like places where there would be like a lot of feathers, like where something had killed a bird of some type. I can remember there was like one cardinal was what I believe it was, like a red bird in there. There was several other birds like thrashers was what it reminded me of, and that type of stuff. It would be just little piles of feathers, like where something had killed it and then plucked the feathers all right there in one little spot. But that was something else that I found up there in the school, was what I believe was the home or the nest or the lair of the Bigfoot. Now, this last little story I'm going to tell you about the old school up there happened many years after these others did. Matter of fact, it was after I had got married and we had a son. And he was about 15 or 16 years old, and he and his friend, they also hunted those woods a lot whenever they were younger. And they came running back home one day saying that up on the old playground up there that they had found an arm. And there was some reason that I couldn't go back. I believe that I was just getting over the flu or something like that. I remember whenever they came in the house all excited and telling me that they had found an arm up there, that I was laying on the couch watching TV that afternoon. I believe it was a Saturday afternoon that I was laying there, and they came in telling about this. And this little picture here is sort of what they found, or a little illustration of what they found. They ran up on this arm out there. I asked them, was it a human arm or what was it? And they said, well, all the flesh and everything was already off the arm. All it was a bone. But you could see the shoulder blade and the arm bones and what appeared to be the hand bones on it. But anyway, I asked them to go back up. At the time, I had a good 35 millimeter camera that, of course, it was a film camera, and my son was familiar with it. He knew how to use it. So we got the camera, and I told him, I said, well, go back up there and at least make a picture of it. They said that it hadn't been there long because it had an odor to it, like where the flesh had kind of rotted, or how bone will smell sometime whenever the flesh is rotting off of it. So they didn't much want to touch it and bring it home because I think they were kind of afraid that it was a human, and it could have been. But anyway, they went back up there and they made pictures of it, and they came on back with the camera, and they were still telling me, they were still excited about it, and they were telling me about it. And it had done got about dark that day whenever they got in, so they talked about it on into the night and everything. They were really excited about finding this arm, which I was kind of worried that it was like a human arm. Maybe somebody had got up there and had got killed in the woods or something, and coyotes or whatever had got them. But anyway, the next morning they decided that they would go back up there and they would get the arm and bring it back down here and where I could see it. Because like I said, I was just getting over the flu or something like that, and I was just unable to get out in the cold weather and take a chance on renewing up with what I had had. But they went back up there the next morning. As I said, they had made pictures that afternoon, that Saturday afternoon. But the next Sunday, they went up there to get the arm, and the arm was gone. Of course, now that doesn't mean that somebody got it and hid it, or probably what happened was coyotes came through and found it and carried it on off somewhere. But after this was in the days when you had to carry your film to get it developed and everything, and we did that as soon as I was able. And when I got the pictures back, I contacted the chief of police here in Wadley, who's a good friend of mine then, and he still is now. Although he doesn't still work here, he has moved on up in law enforcement. But anyway, I contacted him and told him I had a picture I wanted him to look at. And he came by the house, and of course it was a paper picture back then. It was wasn't on a computer or anything to where you could blow it up. It wasn't digital or anything like that. But he didn't believe that it was a human arm. There was a possibility that it could, but he had no reports of anybody missing or anything like that in the area. So anyway, we just sort of let things ride with it. But this is a picture of that arm, a black and white picture of that arm. I have a color picture of it here somewhere, but like I said in another video, it's hard for me to keep up with pictures sometimes. But this was a picture that I used in one of the booklets that I did, and I had a little chapter in there about was this a Bigfoot arm, or was this a human arm, or what is it? But you're welcome to look at the picture the best you can here on the computer, and let me know what you think it is. All I can tell you is that it looks like an arm, and I don't know what kind of arm it is. I'm not an expert in that field of identifying bones. That was sort of where I got my introduction, and my interest began in Bigfoot. I was already interested in all type of paranormal stuff, but Bigfoot just wasn't too well known back in the early 70s, but he is now, and that's where my interest in Bigfoot began. I was up at Pleasant Grove community, just right up above Wadley here. And that's been this edition of Alabama Adventures. And I hope you enjoyed this Alabama adventure, and if you did, and if you like what we're doing down here, we would like you to give us a like, and we would like you to subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe to the channel. All you have to do is click subscribe, and you'll be a subscriber to our Alabama Bigfoot Society channel. I'd also like to say hello to my granddaughter Madison, as I always do when we're doing one of these videos. Would like to tell you that the Alabama Bigfoot Society is run completely out of pocket, and it's a non-profit society. And with all that being said, hope our next Alabama adventure is on a little warmer day. But with all that being said, we'll be looking for you next time on the next Alabama adventure, getting close to Bigfoot.